Hey Cats team. Okay, so here's the second video to get you guys started building widgets. Today I'm going to show you how the if-exist relation works, and in addition to being an existential conditional, I'll show you some particular places where you might use it in templating to hide some Chrome, and then I'll also show you some JavaScript tricks. So those are the two things, and you can feel free to skip to the JavaScript part if you want. All right, so let's first look at this if-exist case. So let's make a new widget, just like before. And in this case, I'm going to go, let me see if I can find it, to Chrome. And I just found this example business card online. So I'm going to copy and paste this business card design. And we'll use that as our widget definition. So here we have this, it's BCBG. I'm just going to call that biz card. And then I'm going to, well actually, hold on here. Following this double wrapping strategy, that, because I don't know what the CSS is going to look like, it might depend upon this anchor, or sorry, this ID right here. So I'm going to actually wrap the widget, and we're going to have this be the container for the widget, this div biz card. I'm also going to go and copy all of the CSS. I'm going to put that into a CSS file. So let's just load up, then we're going to have to, of course, link to that CSS. Style sheet. I think it's href. Okay, so let's see if we can load up this widget. And we get the business card, so that's great. I'll post all these files online so you can take a look at them as well, because I know there's no way you could type that in, having watched the video. All right, so let's now consider invoking this business card. So let's say we want to have a little widget here where we're going to invoke it. So we'll say class bizcard, and let's say I have a business name and a business phone. Okay, well, we need to go back and see if there's spots for those here. Well, there's an email, there's a website, and there's a phone. The first thing we're going to need to do is make sure that there's a distinct element for each of those. See right here how these fields are separated by BR elements? So that's not going to allow cats to address these particular elements, because there's no CSS selector that will select, for example, just this website. So here I'm going to just add span class equals email, and then put this email in here. Oops, span, and then span class equals phone, and then put number span, and I'll put maybe email and phone just to change it up, and I'll show you why we're doing that in a second. Okay, so let's look at this again. We have email colon and then some email, phone colon, and then some phone. So let's go and make a mapping from some content HTML here into this widget HTML, and we're going to see where we might use an if exist. Okay, so here's the content HTML, and I'm just going to paste this right into this tree sheet that we'll start writing for reference. So the first thing, remember, that we're going to want to do, we're calling this tree sheet from the content HTML. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is say, hey, there's this tree. The tree is an HTML tree. We'll call it the widget, and it has a relative relative address of widget.html to the tree sheet. And then we're going to have a graft, and that's going to allow us to invoke the widget. So the graft is going to happen when this bizcard class occurs. So we'll say dot bizcard graft widget, and we're going to graft it onto, remember in the widget where we made this bizcard container up here? So we're going to graft it onto that. And now remember, we're going to flip the ordering of these rules here. So now slot per slot, we're going to go through and punch out the different fields in the widget. Okay, so let's say class line 1 is add your name here. So we're going to say widget.line1 is, and then down here, see in the content HTML, we have this biz name class. All right, so let's delete this and just see doing nothing else if this works. So I'm going to reload the widget. Okay, that looks good. Now I'm going to load the content HTML. And okay, So I see Ted Benson, enter your job title, email, your name, and example.com, phone, and then some other stuff. Okay, so things look good, but something's wrong, and the thing that's wrong is the CSS appears not to have been loaded. So we could either load this by adding a link to the content page, or we can just add a CSS relative widget.css, and now we reload the content page, and it appears, oh, it's bizcard.css. So there is the business card, but with my name in there. So just to show you, let's go back to the content. I'm going to remove the link to the tree sheet. This is the actual content HTML. And then in the presence of the tree sheet, this is what it's remapped into. So let's say, for example, that, and let's do the phone too, so we copy and paste that. We'll go to the widget and see there's this class phone, .phone, and then in the content HTML, we called this bizphone. So we'll change that to bizphone, and now we see 5551212. So let's say, for example, that I don't have an email address. So this is a problem. I could, for example, make a mapping from a hypothetical email in the widget to a biz email address. So let's do that and see what happens. So we see that it correctly tries to map essentially nothing onto where the email address is, but it still leaves this email thing hanging behind. So this is, in addition to the obvious case of existential conditionals being useful when you want to show or not show something, this is like a particular case where it rears its head, is where it's not only that you want to map the email field onto this email slot right here, but you also want to only show this Chrome over here if the email field exists. So what we might say is widget, maybe email container, if exist, biz email. So now we're going to have to go create that email container in the widget. And when we reload now, we see that there's no email. But if there were a biz email, so let's go to here and add our biz email. None of these addresses are actually mine. Then it'll show up. Not only will it get mapped, but then the Chrome will show up as well. So to be a good citizen, you actually often need, if you're making a widget, you often need actually 2 cats rules per field of information as a common thing. So to be a good citizen for the phone, for example, in addition to making this mapping the phone onto the phone, we would want to make a phone container and say if exist bizphone. So reloading, the same thing is going to happen here, but now we see that if turns out I don't have a phone, then the phone, oh, well, something's wrong there. Oh, we didn't create the phone container. Then the phone text here should not appear as well. So let's make the phone container. And when we reload, now we see that the phone doesn't appear as well. But again, in the presence of a phone, the phone Chrome will appear as well as the phone number being mapped in. Okay, so that is both a review of making some widgets, kind of another example, and an example of this 2-rule pattern where you want to conditionally show the Chrome and then also map the slot. Okay, so now we'll